I have a dream that one day this nation will rise up, live out the true meaning of its creed. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal.
So the genesis for our conversation for the 2018 MLK Day started with our spring conversation on race. And just in passing, someone mentioned that there seemed to be a disproportionate number of black students at the high school who had been suspended.
There's a piece of research that I'll probably discuss by the Child Study Center at Yale. And they asked preschool teachers, both black and white preschool teachers, to look at a screen. And on the screen there was a black male, a white male, a black girl, and a white girl. And they asked them to, they lied to the test subjects. And they said, we're looking for signs of pending misbehavior. Some of these kids are about to misbehave, and we're wondering if teachers can pick up. So they sort of, in that way, they were triggering what could be racial stereotypes. And that was the real purpose of saying that, because in fact, none of the students on the screen were misbehaving, and none were about to misbehave. So it was a ruse. But where did most of the eyes go? You can probably guess. Most of the eyes of both black and white preschool teachers went to the black boys.
Most of us recognize that a child does not typically walk into a school and get suspended on day one. Instead, what ends up happening is that a child walks into the classroom and falls into a system where he or she is seen as good or bad, helpful, not helpful, and then that label leads to scrutiny.
I have a dream that one day every valley shall be exalted, and every hill and mountain shall be made low, the rough places will be made plain, and the crooked places will be made straight, and the glory of the Lord shall be revealed, and all flesh shall see it together.
I have 3 children, one of which has successfully matriculated through the Lexington school system. He started in middle school here. And in that experience, I learned that, number one, black students in the Lexington school district are stigmatized in many ways, especially in regards to the METCO program. There's a distinct difference between the way that black students are treated in terms of discipline, and also in regards to expectation. And so that was one of the things we encountered when we first moved here. I've been here for 10 years now, and just sort of getting accustomed to the culture in the town, and realizing that there are certain conversations you have to have with teachers and members of the community just so they are aware of the various experiences and cultural backgrounds that are a part of the Lexington community.
I think it's important in terms of, from a school system perspective, how do we expend resources? Are we really, for example, teachers can have training not just on improving their classroom management, but improving their student engagement skills. But also you can get training on addressing things like implicit bias. It also means that the school district should be looking at these data, and not just the discipline data in a silo over here and the AP data in a silo over there, but they should be thinking of it as sort of more holistically as possible signals of issues that they have with racial inequity, and the same thing is true with inequity along the lines of disability.
So this is actually, I believe, our 3rd annual one, although we actually had another one in the spring. And what we try to do through these communities is foster an opportunity to get together with our friends and neighbors in Lexington to discuss issues that touch on race, but not only race. I would actually say this time we're actually broadening that, because Martin Luther King wasn't really just about, his work wasn't merely about racial disparities. It was actually about civil rights, and civil rights is not only impacting in the area of race, but also in other areas. And this year we've broadened it to include discussions about children with disabilities. We've recently come across data, historical data, that shows that there has been a disparity in suspensions for African American children and children with disabilities. And so that will be a springboard to discuss not just merely the suspension data, but really some of the underlying issues and really the soft pinnings of how we got to that point.
This will be the day. This will be the day when all of God's children will be able to sing with new meaning, "My country, 'tis of thee. Sweet land of liberty, of thee I sing. Land where my fathers died, land of the pilgrim's pride. From every mountainside, let freedom ring. And if America is to be a great nation, this must become true."
When we remove children unnecessarily from the classroom, not only are those children losing valuable education time, but we are foolishly giving up the chance to create yet another successful human being that's going to turn around and have inventions. So many, I'm a patent attorney, so many of my clients are, we could really truly say, on the spectrum or have other learning challenges, but that have other strengths that make them somewhat genius. We have so many different people who have a diversity of ideas that we would lose because they would go straight from the discipline system to the, if not straight to the prison system, at least to the less ambitious system.
Even though there has been just recently some progress in lowering suspension rates and racial disparities therein in Lexington, the fact is that they were high. The fact is that Lexington has some really large racial disparities in other areas. And the discipline data have always been more about a signal about racial inequity in general. And I think there's a general problem we have in Lexington, because we're more progressive than maybe some other places like, Charlotte, North Carolina, is that we need to not say to ourselves, oh, we don't have that problem here. What we really need to do is look at the data and reflect on it and realize that there's a lot more that we can do right here in Lexington.
We are hoping that everyone who's available on Monday morning can come, because you may have a story or you may have a resource that can be used by someone at the table or someone else in the room to make their particular school or their particular grade within that school better.
When we let it ring from every village and every hamlet, from every state and every city, we will be able to speed up that day.
One thing that I would hope for all children in Lexington is for them to have the opportunity to simply be themselves, to love themselves, to explore themselves, and to be able to share themselves with everyone they come in contact with, and not feel like they have to be ashamed or have to hide or have to conform to some perceived norm. That is freedom.